It is the final word. It's season 18. It's probably episode 7. The episode counts have been a bit rubbery lately, but we're figuring things out. The show is also brought to you through the month of April by Odin Mortgage and Tax. If you're one of the many people who listen to the show who's an Australian expatriate, you're living somewhere else, maybe you're living in the United States of America and you're thinking better of it, and you're thinking this might be a pretty good time to come home. Or maybe you, like some Australians have found in the last couple of weeks, you've just been randomly detained at immigration and had your visa cancelled for no reason, and you're being sent home. Not to make light of it, but this is happening. This is very much happening to a lot of people at the moment. You might be somewhere else around the world. You might have just moved to another country. You might be thinking about moving back to Australia soon. All of those things involve complicated financial arrangements when it comes to your tax arrangements or it comes to your mortgage arrangements. And that's what these guys specialise in, giving you the right advice and making sure that you're set up, if you're living outside Australia, to know that you're ticking the boxes, you're doing the right things in all of the countries that you need to be doing them in.
They've got me over the line. They're in my algorithm at the moment, Jeff, because, of course, we're talking about them a lot on the podcast. And they've got a free webinar coming up, which I'm like, well, I might dip into that because this could be of use to me, given that I still have some interest in what's going on in Australia. But obviously, I've lived over here for a long time. But I know that the way my world is set up, that I don't want to completely leave Australia. And I think that's the case for a lot of people who are expats. They live elsewhere. They don't know how long it'll be for. They don't want to completely take all the roots out from where they grew up. So, and indeed, they might be on the 2 or 3 year mobility visa. They might be sponsored. A lot of people do that 2 or 3 year visa over here, and they stay for like 3 or 4 more years. And by that point, you're reaching a stage of your life when you're looking to buy a property or something like that, or have a place to stay when you return to Oz. So that's where Odin step in and make that so much easier. And as we've described on the podcast before, the tax consultation, $300, where that is an investment in making sure that you have everything sorted out. And 2,000 people have taken up Odin for their support across 40 countries. So they've got the breadth of knowledge and experience to make sure that you're well looked after. Click the link in the show notes to learn more about Odin Mortgage and Tax.
Test cricket is happening during the IPL. Zimbabwe went to Bangladesh. They didn't know how to play in Bangladesh. They had no experience in Asian conditions almost uniformly, aside from a couple of the grizzled vets who are still going around the circuit. And they pulled off a very narrow win. They went to Sylhet. They bowled out Bangladesh for 191 to start off the test match. Blessing Musrabani, another threefer, who's been super impressive in limited test opportunities the last few years.
He's the real deal, this bloke, Musrabani. I mean, we've known this for ages, just naked eye test, right? I watched him bowl, a long time ago when he was a young bloke, when I was covering a T20 series there. But I had a look at his overall record. He's played 11 test matches in nearly a decade. You compare that to Heath Streak, who played 65 in 12 years, and you're reminded of the inequity there for a country like Zimbabwe as a full member. And the World Test Championship, as terrific as it is, it does leave 3 countries outside. And that's why these matches and series, 2 test series here in Bangladesh is to be celebrated and attention paid to it. And they got themselves right into the match by knocking over Bangladesh for 191, which is, as you say, a significant thing given they're a long way from their familiar conditions, and they play
and
most
did
of
it
their
partly with
home.
pace. They did it with some spin as well. Wellington Mazzacadze bowls left arm spin. What is interesting is that they've got 11 tests this year. So you said 11 tests in almost 10 years, but Zimbabwe will play 11 this year. They've got the test in England. They're hosting series against New Zealand and South Africa later in the year. So this is really good to see them coming back into more regular test scheduling, and hopefully Blessing Musrabani is able to play a lot of those.
It's going to be that New Zealand South Africa bit is going to be great. End of July, start of August, where they've got like 4 home test matches in the space of 6 weeks. It's done something more than South Africa are hosting. So, it's all in context of the wider world, of course, but still, it's a positive development. Zimbabwe took a healthy first innings lead after making 273. Sean Williams, who's as old as me, made 59. Brian Bennett, who I always imagine when I see his name as Darren Bennett's brother, kicking torpedo punts for Melbourne or in the NFL.
Okay. This is where we differ. I think of Alan Bennett, the playwright, and Albert Finney's. They did a TV miniseries probably 30 years ago where Albert Finney played a bunch of the roles in Alan Bennett plays.
Well, funny you say that. Alan Bennett has come up a lot this week because Dan Foreman's piece in the Almanac is titled Alan Bennett's Baton, and there's a quote from Mike Atherton that referred to the passing of time with Jimmy Anderson when he retired last year, and the passing of the baton, as it were. through the generations. And that's the frame that Dan used to write his piece about Sunday cricket. So, it all comes together nicely. I know who Alan Bennett is. It's fine. So back to the game again. We're going to go back and forth in and out of Zimbabwean cricket politics here, I suspect. So Brian Bennett's 57. Mehedi Hassan, another fifer, naturally. When does he not take a fifer, our guy? So Bangladesh need to fight hard to stay in the game, and they do so. They make 255 in their second innings. The captain, Shanto, makes 60. The wicketkeeper, Jakar Ali, makes 58. As for Blessing, our man from before, 6 wickets, making 9 for the match. It includes his 50th test wicket at an average of 20.6. Fastest Zimbabwean to that mark. And he's done so, as I say, in just 11 test matches. And that he's taken a fifer in each of his last 3 starts. So this is a guy at age 28 who is now at the peak of his power. So a 9-wicket match, which leaves Zimbabwe 174. Brian Bennett, he's not really just Darren's brother in my head. He's also a 21-year-old opening bat. He's had a very promising start to his test career. He made 54 up the top, and he put on 95 for the first wicket with Ben Curran, who made 44. All going pretty well, none for 95, chasing 174. Then the wobble, the inevitable wobble, where a lack of experience can kick in. Wickets falling at 95, 112, 127. That was Williams. 128, 144. That's Irvine. So there's the experienced guys. They're both gone. 145, 161. 7 down, 13 to get. Collapse feels on. Mehedi's orchestrating it. At this stage, he's got 10 wickets for the match, 5 for in both innings, including his 200th in Test cricket, getting there in 52 matches, which is very tidy. 4 or so wickets a Test match is good going from a guy who's been an absolute star for Bangladesh. But there was Wesley Madavare, who you mentioned before. He held the line, 19 not out, batting through to the end with Richard Nagarava. In the case of Wesley, he reverse swept Mehedi for the winning runs. Wonderful scenes there. The first win for Zimbabwe in 11 Test matches, only the 5th time they've won away from home. And as you say, they've got England coming up in a month on that marathon weekend for us up in Edinburgh. Well, there'll be a Test match at Trent Bridge, and Zimbabwe will be there playing England for the first time in 22 years, straight off the back of a victory against Bangladesh, a full member as well, a team that's in the World Test Championship, a team that know their home conditions well. So this is significant, and as you say, no better start to their run of tests throughout the course of 2025.
And I have to have a watching brief on the last 2 in the batting order for Bangladesh. This is for Daniel Norcross, who loves nothing more than what Khaled Ahmed and Nahid Rana have been doing with the bat over their Test careers. So Khaled Ahmed to start, who's batting at 10 in this Bangladesh team. I think that's worth noting just on its own. Started with a pair on debut. Second innings against New Zealand, in his 3rd Test innings, he slogged a single boundary. Those 4 runs were his only runs in his first 13 Test innings. 4 not out, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 not out, 0, 0 not out, 0, 0, 0, and 0 not out. So 3 pairs, 2 matches when he didn't make a run but was not out in one of those innings. And after that, he got a single in Grosile against West Indies. He leg glanced Alzari Joseph for a single. And then in the second innings was run out for naught. And then in his next series against India was 0 not out, 0 not out, and 0. So at this point, he'd batted 18 times in Tests and made 5 runs from 2 scoring shots. Then he had his run-scoring glut where he made 4 from a single stroke, 4 not out from a single stroke, and then slogged 22 against Sri Lanka. Somehow, nobody knows how this happened to this day. He just went after the spinners and got a couple away. Top edges over gully. It was messy, but he got there. Since then, he's made 0, 1, 2, 0, 5 not out, 4 not out, and 0 in the second innings of this current Test match. So his average has gone up. It was 0.45 after 10 Test matches. It's now 2.41. So he's heading in the right direction, but not very far.
Where does that sit? Where does that sit all time,
all
Jeff?
time?
I know we've got a few.
Low. 2.66, I think, was Chris Martin off the top of my head.
Yeah, and Hopper
there
Reid
are worse than that.
For first class, it's Hopper Reid, isn't it? He played the one. Was it?
Yeah.
Hopper Reid, who played the one Test match, but had a first class average, kind of in the 2s as well.
Yeah, it's once you do the 20 innings qualification, that scrubs out. There are lots of people who average zero, for instance, but from a handful of test innings, so that sort of thing. So it's definitely up there, or down there. Nahid Rana is lower. He's averaging 2.16. He's had 11 test innings, 5 ducks, 4 not outs, 2 1 not outs. And then his one anomaly innings was when he made 11 against India, which included 9 runs in 3 balls against Jasprit Bumrah, when he just swung the bat and got a couple of boundaries away. So Norcross is sure that he must have been somebody else teleported into his body for those 3 balls, basically. Apparently across all professional cricket, Daniel was texting me about this earlier because, of course, he was. In all professional cricket, Nahid Rana has batted 48 times and made 51 runs. Across List A and T20 cricket as well. So good to see that they, between them, scored 0 runs in the second innings of this test match just to keep things up where they should be.
One more point before we move off this test match. It reinforces to me why the IPL window is actually a really good time to play international cricket. There were so many people following this test match because there was nothing else going on. If you're not an IPL person, and look, we know that Zimbabwe and Bangladesh aren't supplying any players to the IPL. Well, not many over the years anyway. Take full advantage. Earn the attention. It's kind of back to my conversation with Richard Gould suggesting a European Cup each year. Well, yes, it's a busy schedule, but it's actually not a busy schedule in April and May. Yep, there's domestic cricket going on here, which is great. But imagine a world where they played a T20 tournament each year, rotating between Dublin or Belfast, but probably Dublin, the Netherlands, where we played a couple of years ago at Amstelveen, and Scotland up at the Grange. And you could do that with an England team that was comprised of players who aren't in the IPL. And of course, most of them aren't, right? There's 10 or so England players in the IPL, something like that. It doesn't need to be the England first team, but what a great tune-up for the white ball summer it would be if each year there was a European Cup, and you could do it quite quickly because it's T20 cricket. You could play in 3 consecutive days. Everyone plays everyone, so to speak, and then a final, maybe a day off, to let them recuperate after the group stage, and a final on day 5, in and out inside a week. So, yep, your county players would definitely miss around in that scenario. But a lot of England white ball players don't play too often in the county championship anyway. Take someone like, I don't know, Chris Jordan, for instance. He doesn't play 4-day cricket. So you'll be able to put out a very creditable England team. And we know that the way in which teams are sent around the world these days, you don't always play your first team. You seldom do in bilateral cricket. There's always an element of management going on with first choice players. So yeah, you're not using your IPL players, but it would still have a lot of merit in having something each year which brought the 4 European teams together who are competing at that higher level. Remembering that the Dutch, the Scots, and the Irish have all had moments of great success against England over the years. There's almost no downside to doing this. And I've even worked out which weekend it should be. There's a May bank holiday weekend here at the start of the month each year. Do it then. You could go, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You'd get loads of tourists going out there from England. The Barmy Army would make a mozza out of it. They certainly did when they went to Holland in 2022. I think it's just a case of them realising that this window, yes, it is dominated by the IPL, but this test match is a small but important example that there is still oxygen there. There is still space there for international cricket if you want to find it and you want to use it.
Yeah, most players are not playing in the IPL. Most players who are not Indian are not. So use the opportunity. I'm going to do a little bit of No Pledge, just a dabble. No Pledge is a game that we play with nice people on the internet who fund the entire Final Word enterprise. They send in an amount of currency. That number corresponds to cricket. We have to figure out what it means. Claire, Danny, Daniel, Adam, long-time pledger to the show, had a pledge. This is a revisit because sometimes we don't guess the number and we have to come back to it. We did a story about David Allen. Claire says, my mum perhaps saw him play at Headingley. She used to go with her dad and brother to the Headingley test matches after school, and I just asked nicely to be let in, and usually would work. Claire said, so I thought there was a Gloucester connection with Claire. That's not the case. Apparently it's an Essex connection. You know what I'm like with knowing which county is which. Sometimes things don't always scan. But the pledge was £5.30. It was in honour of a player's record-setting performance during the Sunrisers' encouraging start to a season. So I thought this revisit for today, because Vale, farewell the Sunrisers as the new season starts with the Sunrisers not there, although the Blaze are still there.
Yeah, well, the Sunrise has now become Essex. So
Yes.
even though it felt at the start like Middlesex were the senior partner in that relationship, Essex was successful in getting the tier one team. So now the Sunrisers players have all now become part of tier one at Chelmsford, which is a great thing that Essex have made that investment. I think it's partly to do with the support they're getting from Chelmsford University as well. And yeah, Claire has had stories with us before about Essex, so I'm liking how this ties through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Sunrisers bit was sort of Essex, Middlesex, Northamptonshire, a bunch of other of minor counties and so on out towards the east of London. Yep. That was how it vaguely worked out. So they were not very good. We have talked about Sunrisers on the show before, and they were not very good to a historic level. Like their early seasons were very, very bad. They lost every match in their first 50 over season. They won a game in their first T20 season. They lost every match in their second 50 over season, then lost every match in their second T20 season. So things weren't going great. And then 2023, their third season, they finished bottom of the table in the T20s again, but they started that season with their first 50 over win. And they got a couple more that season. It was the start of something. Not only that, their first 50 over win in their third season, it was up against the Vipers. And the Vipers are in Mighty Ducks parlance, they're the Hawks of the piece. The Vipers are the best team. The really, the standard setter of the competition. They win everything. So beating them was a big deal. Grace Scrivens, who you always talk about to this day, Adam, she made 67 at the top of the order. And she was having to take on a lot of responsibility at that club where they were supposed to have Dane van Niekerk come out to captain for a while, and then she couldn't come, and so Scrivens had to do it at a young age. So maybe all this suffering through adversity has made her the quality of player that she seems to be now. So she makes runs. Jodie Grewcock makes runs. Maddie Villiers makes runs, half centuries each. They put together 288, which is a big score against the Vipers. And then Abtaha Maqsood with the ball. She's a leg spinner, and she's very visible. She bowls in a headscarf at a period of time where there aren't a lot of Asian professional players, particularly in women's cricket in the UK. And so she's someone who's stood out during the 100 and so on for very visibly representing her faith on the field. She's bowling leg spin. She'd been painfully close to getting them their first win in the previous season, but that was with the bat. There was a point where she's in the last pair batting. They bat 4 overs or so. They add 10 runs. They've got heaps of time. They need 7 more runs. They've got 5 overs to go, and she gets out LBW, and there's that. She's almost there. She's almost got them there. So this is her opportunity. She's doing it with the ball. She gets Maya Bouchier, who's flying, who's smashed 50 at well better than a runner ball, gets her out, gets the captain, Georgia Adams, out for a duck, and then picks up 3 more near the end, takes 5 for 30. That's the pledge number. That's the first ever 5-wicket haul for Sunrisers. They win by 126 runs, and the following season, 2024, they finish the fairy tale. They have a bad start. They have a comeback surge. They run the table, and they only go on and win the whole thing. The last time that they would play as Sunrisers was winning that 50-over competition after 2 very bad years and 1 not great year, but it did start with that win that got them on their way. That's 5:30. I think I've got you this time, Claire.
Nice one, Jeff. Patreon.com/The Final Word to do all the things that we do here on The Final Word with you and me, Jeff, as we quickly skip through a couple more topics. What's going on with Jason Gillespie? I saw some comments during the week where he's still after some cash that the PCB haven't paid him.
Yeah, you'd be shocked to learn that the board, which I think is really up for the title of least credible cricket board in the world currently, aside from the one that's run by the Taliban, they're doing a shockingly bad job at competence and management, and this is one of them. So basically, they tactically tried to force Gillespie out of the job for years. They stripped, for months rather, they stripped selection powers from him. They sacked his assistants. They suddenly asked him to take over the white ball team when it wasn't part of his job. He was told he would be paid additionally for that because that wasn't part of his original remits. There were also supposed to be win bonuses, especially for that test series win against England where they managed to turn it around. I see no reason to believe that none of that's true. So that's what he's made public because they've told him that they're not going to pay him any of this. And their rationale is you were supposed to give us 4 months' notice to resign. They were trying to get him to quit for probably 4 months. Like they were tactically trying to annoy him to the point that he resigned, and maybe he fell for it by resigning. Maybe he should have made them sack him, but it seems to be in very bad faith to be saying, "Oh, well, because of that, we're not going to pay out your contract." Which foreign coach is ever going to agree to work for the PCB after this?
Yeah, it's like when you see someone trying to get their girlfriend to break up with them because they haven't got the guts to do it themselves, type thing. That was but Gillespie did have the guts to walk away, and I hate to say we called it, but we and everyone else said that this could end badly for him, and it's sad that it has. But he had a crack, and as you say, did enjoy some success as coach of Pakistan, but it just all fell away so badly, and it's an emblem of how badly they're going, the PCB more generally. Sticking with another former Australian cricketer, Jeff, and I don't want to get into this in too much depth, but Michael Slater's time in court has concluded. He has been sentenced. He was denied bail originally due to the court orders that he'd ignored. But the whole shopping list of dreadful stuff that played out with his ex, the intimidatory behaviour, the break-in. I mean, it was all horrible stuff as it came out in court. But ultimately, he's been able to walk free on the basis that he's been in custody for the length of time that would now constitute having been imprisoned anyway. So it's a suspended sentence in effect. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much further to add because the stuff on the public record speaks for itself, really.
Yeah, it's a fairly perplexing outcome court-wise, where initially, because he was stalking an ex, hundreds of calls and messages, and eventually the arrest came when she had a video alert that showed him breaking into her house. She wasn't there, but she had automated security set up and was able to show that to police, and that's when he finally got arrested. But there was already an apprehended violence order against him that meant that he was supposed to stay away from this person, at which he kept breaching repeatedly. So at the time, there was, the judge that heard the bail application at the time said, "I'm satisfied that there is an unacceptable risk of further offending." That was August last year. So it doesn't really clock how by April this year, a different judge says that Michael Slater demonstrated cooperation and remorse by submitting an early guilty plea. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The prosecution wanted 5 years with parole at 3 years, so that would have meant another 2 years imprisonment before he'd be eligible to get out. And instead, they've said that the year and a bit that he's total that he served in custody is sufficient, and that the rest of the sentence is suspended. So it's fairly hard to see a lot of the time. It's hard to believe that courts take violence against women seriously when you see cases like this where it's pretty cut and dried and it's behaviour over a long period of time. But, we weren't in court. I didn't hear the case. So I'll give that caveat that there can be more subtlety to the information there. But as far as the information that's been reported, that seems like a pretty unimpressive outcome.
Jeff, just quickly staying in Australia before we go to our last break. And on the other side of that, we'll have our county wrap and our conversation with Ben Jones on the Indian Premier League. The women's contracts have been released during the week. So the major news points here I thought were that, well, first of all, Georgia Vols earned her first contract. There is no doubt about that. She's been outstanding. Tess Flintoff's got one too, despite no Australian debut. So there's one there. As a 22-year-old all-rounder, they are looking to the future with her, which is interesting. Even to something like Elise Perry having moved states this week from Victoria to New South Wales. Like, what does that mean? How long is she going to be around for? Where do they see Flintoff fitting into the future there? And then Jess Jonathan, it's been a long time since she's played. October 23 was our last test cap, but she was joint player of the WBBL. So I think that there was a sense that she might have earned another contract, and whether she plays or not's a matter for the selectors. And Sean Flegler said that she's well down the pecking order at age 32. They've got other spinners that they have got performing. There's no doubt about that, between Gardner and Molyneux and King and Wareham. The other bowlers in front of her have performed. So it's not like sometimes we've been frustrated by Amanda Jade Wellington being overlooked for these lists, and we've sort of done compare contrast, but that's not as clear cut here. But it does increasingly feel like Jess Jonathan has played her last game for Australia, even if the door has been kept ajar, at least in theory, in those public comments.
I think it's really unfortunate there. They've only got one left-arm spinner in their entire contract list, which is Molyneux, who is injury-prone. So there is that aspect to it. If you want a left-arm orthodox spinner who can bat, there aren't many better options than Jonathan. It seemed to me like a lot of it was due to them thinking that she couldn't score quickly enough with the bat, more than anything she'd done with the ball, because that was impeccable. Their bowling records extraordinary, and it does seem odd that they feel the need to add another seam bowling all-rounder. So they've got Perry, they've got Heather Graham, they've got Talia McGrath, Annabelle Sutherland, Kim Garth, already all on that list as far as seamers who can bat. Not that Perry's bowling much anymore, I suppose. In terms of age profile and bringing through a new player, that makes sense with Tess Flintoff, who's 22, but it is odd that an uncapped player gets a national contract. That surely would have to indicate that they wanted to be bowling or to be playing a lot over the next 12 months, but it's hard to see where she's going to get a spot in that team. So perhaps it was just about moving on an older player for a younger one, but it still seems peculiar just how completely starkly they've moved on from Jonathan, who I think is still one of the best players in the country.
It shows the formula that they have to win, that they like to bat really deep and they like to have many, many bowling options in the 11s they field. It's not unusual for Australia to bowl 8 or indeed 9 bowlers in a one-day international. So I can see why they've got Tess Flintoff to support that and bolster that, given that's their game plan. But yeah, it's unfortunate for the reasons that you state. Jonathan's done nothing wrong necessarily, and I mentioned her form in the Big Bash last year opened the door to her returning, but it might just be one of these situations where they've said they need to allocate their resources carefully, because they are a team that's going to need to regenerate. Every team does. Every great team needs to find a way to move players on, and it feels like Jonathan's found herself on the wrong side of that. Taylor Valamick gets a contract as well. Of course, her career has been littered with serious injuries, but it feels like with her, as much as it was with the men and Pat Cummins a generation ago, that they are going to continue giving Valamick contracts and back that one day her luck will turn and her injury profile will change and she'll be able to play sustained cricket for Australia. And I don't want to, risk having her rehabilitation at different times being in the hands of others. They want to control the situation.
Well, they also don't want her to give up on cricket. If she doesn't have a contract, if she doesn't have that stability of earnings and she's sitting there injured for another 12-month layoff, the temptation to pack it in and say, I'll go and do something else with my life would be strong. So she's got that incentive to stick around. So those are the contracts for the Australian women. We'll take our last break, county wrap, and then the IPL. It is the final word. It's season 18. It's episode, did we say 7? Hard to remember at this point.
I promise you.
County cricket, look, this wasn't a hugely eventful round, Adam, and I was keeping more of an eye on it than I sometimes do. There were a lot of draws, 4 draws in 7 years ago, 4 draws in Division 1. Most of the games were rain affected, not just on the last day, although most of them were on the last day, but also on other days. The only result was Essex channeling the Sunrisers, holding off Worcestershire narrowly with a bit of controversy. This was quite the effort here, Adam. So they got bowled out for 179, Essex. Jacob Duffy, 4 for 39. Top score was 32 by Jordan Cox. Worcestershire blow the chance of a big lead. They're 4 for 22 at one stage. They're all out for 202. So they've got a lead, but not a big one. Kasun Rajitha, who we've been talking about, the Sri Lankan quick, takes 4 for 52. The one who batted at number 10 in the Miracle at Durban, it was Vishwa Fernando batting at 11. We were talking about that last week. And then you've got to say it, Tall Paul Walter, 104, opening the batting. He's been doing a good job at the top of the order. He makes that 100, takes them to 317, Essex. So they've set Worcester 295. Worcester are screwed. They're 119 for 5 at one point. They're 185 for 6 at the end of the third day. They lose 3 for 16 the next morning. And then Ethan Brooks goes absolutely nuts. They've got 93 to get. He's batting at number 8. He whacks 7 sixes, brings up a 50 partnership with the number 11 not scoring a run. And Ethan Brooks gets to 88, and then he pops up a return catch to Jamie Porter, 28 runs short. Porter takes 6 for 52. It was a low catch sliding in on the pitch. Porter insists it was clean. He says, I've never claimed a catch that wasn't. Ethan Brooks didn't like it, and some of the video is unflattering. I think it's probably unflattering in the way that a lot of video is, where it probably is okay. He probably does have his fingers underneath it, but it looks like it bounces, even though it probably didn't. I suspect it's one of those, but who can know?
Yeah, well, Worcester put out a pretty punchy social media post which amplified this. I agree. It's too difficult to tell on the camera angles. We've got enough experience doing this, Jeff, on international cricket where it is so it's borderline impossible to tell, even with all the technology of close-up cameras and super slow-mo. We obviously don't have that on county
let alone
streams.
a county stream, with a fixed camera at long on.
And I feel for Porter here too, because he's been the match winner, 6 for 52. It means he's taken 14 at 20 this season. He led Division 1 last year as well. So, I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about Sam Cook, but Jamie Porter continues to be right at the very peak of his game. Very unlucky not to play a test match back in 2019 against Ireland when he was 12th man and in a couple of England squads. But he's making sure that he continues to be the type of cricketer who in Division 1 makes a contribution almost every week.
Sussex and Surrey, high-scoring draw, not much to write home about. Tom Haynes made 174 for Sussex, who made 400 plus, and then Ollie Pope and Dan Lawrence made hundreds for Surrey, who made 490, and that was pretty much that. It
was pretty important. I felt that Lawrence made those runs. His numbers have gone off a cliff, I'm afraid to say, since last summer. He started really well for Surrey, but he returned to the test team and ended up opening the batting at one stage in, I think, 2 matches against Sri Lanka, which was a poorly implemented plan, really. I don't know where they came up with the idea that Lawrence should be a test opener, but anyway. But since then, he's been averaging like 15 at first class level. So he needed this, and the fact that they were trying to score quick runs to keep the game moving after losing time to rain probably helped him, liberated him. So let's hope it's a turning point for him. As for Ollie Pope, got an 80-odd last week and 100 here, so he was in a little bit of a rut. Certainly when it came to his returns for Surrey specifically. It's easily forgotten that he made a couple of hundreds against New Zealand over the winter. When you're considering where England are at right now, it's a good time for Ollie Pope to be making runs.
Similar sort of rainy batting draw for Yorkshire and Durham. Yorkshire made 307, simply Dom Bess 60-odd. Brendan Doggett 4 for 69. Just a little footnote there. Just keep an eye on that. Durham made 427, mostly built around a couple of big hundreds. Alex Lees, who's a name we haven't heard as much of late, 172. Emilio Gay, 152.
Alex Lees is always 120 not out somewhere. Alex Lees' record since getting dropped from the England team is extraordinary. If the world were fair, it's a bit like the Dom Sibley chat, right? Once you are out, Adam Live in a generation before's another. Once you've been in the team and out again, it seems not to matter an awful lot what you do. And so it applies for Lees, who's been brilliant in getting Durham to Division 1 and now making his presence felt there as well as a senior pro.
Yeah, and Emilio Gay, who's been knocking around for a few years without really stamping it. So 150 for him, significant. And then Johnny Bairstow, just a curiosity there, 86 not out in just making sure the draw was safe before it rained. Would have been interesting if he'd turned up. Is he coming back? The whispers. Do we hear the whispers? Anyway, there were a couple of other teams that got a bit more lucky with rain. They needed the rain. So Somerset, all out for 184 against Hampshire. They were lucky to get 184 because Miguel Pretorius made 47 not out, batting at number 10. So that got them up to the score that they got. Brad Wheel and Fuller took 4 wickets each. Hampshire then made 336. Your friend Gubbo, I just love to call him Gubbo, 82, and Liam Dawson made 72. But Somerset held on despite the big deficit, 163 for 2, and rain involved and all the rest of it.
Liam Dawson was a Wisden Cricketer of the Year, and he was at the dinner the other night and in good spirits, so good on him. I think the most interesting England news out of this game is the fact that Sonny Baker was rested by the ECB. Watch this space. He's going to be bloody exciting. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if they play him against Zimbabwe, just give him a taste test at this level. I've got to say, like, you just get a vibe with some cricketers, and I just feel like this guy's it. How they play it, he's young, he's new, he's fresh. He wasn't getting opportunities at Taunton, but he's obviously quick enough, and he bowls sustained pace as well. It's not like his pace drops deeper into a day. He can do the short pitch stuff, which England love. They love bowlers who can do the short pitch stuff, and he's part of that battering ram of prospective quicks for Australia too. So let's not put cup for horse here, but I think that the fact that they've rested him at this point of the season would suggest that they are very much looking at him for that Zimbabwe test.
Well, let's go from battering rams to the Australian Sam Cook. This was Warwickshire flying pretty close to the wind against Nottinghamshire, the Blaze. They'll have to be the Blaze in all formats now. They got bowled out for 93 by Fergus O'Neill. The Fergburger took 5 for 19. 5 for 19. Brett Hutton took 5 for 38. And then Fergus follows it up by making 50 with the bat. Knots make 367. Hasib Hamid carries his bat, makes 138, not out. And then Warwickshire were 181 for 6 in the end, saving the game. Oliver Hannon Dalby, who I'm told might listen to the final word, was promoted. He went from number 10 up to number 8, blocked the shit out of it for quite a long time, 60-something balls that it was, and managed to hang on to the draw. But Fergus O'Neill, goodness me.
Yep, Bill Ferg's Lobster Cave is where the Fergburger originated from. And who knows, it might be that you're having yourself a Fergburger at Lords on the 11th of June if Australian bowlers started breaking down in India. No sign of that happening, I add. But, he's in the best possible place, taking shitloads of wickets in Division 1 and sort of taking his show on the road for the first time and doing it in style. So, he's clearly in that generation next as far as Australian test bowlers are concerned, and in that old finishing school of county cricket. Right place, right time, maybe, probably not, but got to be in it to win it.
Mm-hmm. Divi 2, 3 draws, 1 result. Middlesex belted Glamorgan by 9 wickets, bowled them out for 199, then made 470 for 9. Ton for Max Holden. Lewis Deploy made 89. Geddes took a break from taking pictures of babies inside pumpkins and made 83. Shoaib Bashir, none for 89.
Yep, going at worse than 4s again. If you're a spinner in England right now, you would be thinking that there is a window where you can get yourself into 2 very high profile series if they have moved on from Jack Leach. And I hope they haven't, by the way. I hope they haven't moved on from Jack Leach. But if they have, where does this all come together? Is Rayan Ahmed, I don't know, is he going to be the next Steve Smith? And by that I mean going from leg spin all-rounder to top order player. Opening for Leicestershire, that might be the case, but is it going to be Rayan Ahmed's little brother who's been bowling finger spin as a 17-year-old in Division 1 this year? Is it going to be someone we haven't even thought of yet? So that's a challenge for Shoaib Bashir. That test squad against Zimbabwe, that'll be one of the most interesting news points. Is he in it?
Yes. Well, Kieran Carlson for Glamorgan made a half century, but Middlesex only had a few to chase, did it easily. Rayan Ahmed did ton up in this round, opening the batting, made 100 even for Leicestershire. So Leicestershire bowled out Lanks for 263. Marcus Harris made 77. Then Rayan Ahmed makes his 100. Peter Handscomb makes 142, not out, declares at 491. Bearing in mind that he's the captain, clearly proves that 150 is a bullshit milestone because Handscomb is like, why would I make 150? 142 is fine. I'll just declare now. They did have Lanks at 3 for 11 at one point, but Harris put out the fire with Josh Bohannon and settled in for a draw there. So more runs for Marcus Harris, big runs for Handscomb, and 100 for Rayan Ahmed feels significant.
Yeah, it does. The fact that this wasn't like a one-off novelty thing last week. So having been night watchman 2 weeks ago, opening in 2 consecutive rounds. It's going to be an interesting story, his career. Having been the youngest England Test debutant a couple of years ago in Pakistan, being given opportunities in 3 separate series. Where he might be in 5 years' time. It's easy to joke about the Steve Smith thing, but might this be the trajectory that he's now on to become a top order player who bowls leg spin? If that were to be the case, he'll be attractive from an England perspective in a whole different range of ways.
Get them all in there. Scotty Borthwick, Matt Critchley, the leg spinning all rounders, top order. Run heavy draw with Derbyshire and Northamptonshire. Derby made 307 at home. Wayne Madsen creaked his way out to the middle for another 89. Northants made 500 for 8 and declared. Proctor 150, Saif Zaib 105, and then Madsen another 62 not out. batting in the third innings to make sure it was a draw. Caleb Jewell made 71.
Another 50. Caleb Jewell now, I think he's got 5 50s and 6 hits for Derbyshire. Great signing. And Madsen, he's there's a ton of avoidance there. He got a century at the start of the season, a 90, an 89, now a 62 not out. So he's he owes the lads a jug over there. But good on him for getting another draw.
And Gloucestershire, the last one, 472 that they made at Canterbury. Cameron Bancroft skippering that side, which is interesting, didn't make any. Cameron Green did, 112. James Bracey, 151 not out, talking about people who've been picked by England and punted.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, James Bracey, who played those 2 test matches in 2021, but he's made a mountain of runs in the last couple of years, so keeping himself there and thereabouts. Significant for Cameron Green, his first professional game back after back surgery. When thinking about the World Test Championship final, again, there's a squeeze there, isn't there? Good problems to have for Australia. I think we all have kind of priced in with him not bowling that it's going to have to be lots of runs here in this stint with Gloucestershire. So what better way to start than with the century?
And Ben Compton replied with 178, got Kent to 393. Gloucestershire batting on. They were 312 ahead at lunch on day 4, but that was close to what Kent chased in the previous round. So Bancroft didn't want to set them that target. So they kept batting, got to 400 ahead, declared with 41 overs to go, and then realised that maybe they could have won the game because they take 6 wickets in those 40 overs. Tom Price, 4 for 33. Zach Crawley ended up being the one who put the fire out, which was perhaps unexpected, 54 not out from 112. So that might have been good for him to have to play an innings like that.
Yeah, 2 things here. The draw, and Yaz Rana's big on this, the draw is overvalued in county cricket at the moment with 8 points. So you're in a situation here where Bancroft is incentivised to take the 8 points that are sitting there rather than risking losing them. And I know that that's a story as old as time in cricket about needing to risk losing to win, but the incentive structure there in the second division, a loss can really draw you back with so many draws in the comp. So, not willing to live a little. And Zach Crawley, probably quite an important 54 not out there for him in as far as just keeping the wolf from the door a little bit, having missed out more often than not since the season started a few weeks ago.
So that is the county wrap. That's where we're at. Next round won't be too far away because it never is.
No,
and that's us for the day.
It starts on Friday tomorrow. I'm there at the Oval this week for Surrey hosting Somerset. Bit of a grudge match there. Remember what happened down there last year with the one-game contract for Shakib? The horrible stuff that went on with some of the abuse of Tom Curran out down there a couple of years ago, and Tom biting back on socials, and no love lost. I don't reckon between Surrey and Somerset. And given that Surrey are yet to win a game, they will want to make the most of their home advantage come 11 o'clock tomorrow morning.
But that is you and me, Adam, and I will be back in just a second with the IPL with Ben Jones.